The Montana air hung still and cold as glass, the kind of silence that only existed in places forgotten by time. The town of Crystal Peak was a ghost of itself. Population 23, all of them clinging to life in the ruins of a mining boom that had dried up decades ago. A two-lane road split the valley like a scar, flanked by pine trees and the carcasses of buildings long since abandoned. To the casual eye, it was a speck on the map, not even worth a second glance. That's exactly why it had been chosen. Reaper 1 lay prone atop the old water tower, overlooking the central square, motionless beneath the camouflage netting woven with local brush and dirt. Through the scope of his custom-built rifle, he scanned the surroundings: windows, rooftops, alleyways. Every crack and corner memorized. It had been 5 days since he'd received the order. 5 days of waiting, watching, listening, because something was coming. Something not of this world. He wasn't military anymore. Not officially. His real name was Kyle Bishop, retired Marine Corps sniper. MARSOC. 40 years old, 2 knee surgeries, and a record filled with more redacted pages than actual print. But when the agency came calling, quiet voices behind secure lines, requesting a black asset for a containment scenario, he hadn't hesitated. There was something about the way they'd said it. Not a terrorist threat, not a foreign actor. Something worse. Something they didn't understand. "You'll know it when you see it," the handler had said. That had been a week ago. Now it was almost time. The earpiece crackled with Natalie's voice, calm, clinical, and sharp as a razor. She was watching his feed from the orbital drone network overhead, feeding him telemetry in real time. "No movement on infrared," she said. "Visual sweep clean, but signal interference is rising. Gamma flux increasing." Reaper adjusted the windage slightly. "That means it's close. Estimate within 3 clicks. Recommend tightening your perimeter." He grunted. Already done. 2 days prior, he'd rigged half the town with proximity sensors and motion-activated decoys. He knew how things moved when they hunted, whether it had blood or circuits or both. Everything obeyed certain laws of physics. Reaper's job was to find those laws and break them before the thing could kill him. Natalie spoke again, softer this time. "You're sure about the bait?" He looked down toward the old church. It had been converted into a communications node, complete with a false signal array and dummy thermal signatures. From the sky, it looked like a human command center. Vulnerable. Perfect. "If it's tracking by energy or heat, that's where it'll go first," he said. "And if it's smarter than that, then it'll know I'm up here." The line went quiet. Then static. Then nothing. Reaper's thumb slid off the safety. That was the moment he saw it. Not a ship. Not a pod. Just presence. Movement didn't announce it. Light didn't betray it. 1 second the space near the trilene was empty. The next, it was full. A shape coalescing from distortion, like heat mirage folding into something solid. 7 feet tall. Armored. Inhuman. It didn't walk. It floated just above the surface like friction was optional. Its body shimmered with active camouflage, and where light hit it wrong, the illusion fractured. 1 second it looked like a man, the next like a spider, the next like some formless machine cloaked in plasma. But its eyes, those stayed constant. A single strip of burning blue etched across its head like a war-paint halo. Alien. Assassin. And it was headed for the church. Reaper didn't breathe. Didn't blink. His rifle tracked the movement perfectly, heart rate steady. 200 meters. Too far for a center mass shot to guarantee a kill. Not on something like that. He waited. At the threshold of the church, the thing paused. It tilted its head, sensing the deception perhaps. An intelligence buzzed behind that mask, cold and clinical, like a butcher choosing where to cut. Then it moved, faster than physics allowed. Reaper fired. The shot cracked like thunder, echoed by the distant report of breaking glass. The bullet hit just behind the creature's shoulder as it lunged, an armor-piercing round meant to punch through steel. It staggered. Sparks flew, but it didn't fall. Instead, it spun mid-air, pivoting unnaturally, landing crouched in the center of the square. Its head snapped toward the water tower. Direct line of sight. It had seen him. Reaper cycled the bolt. Another round chambered. The thing didn't wait. With a shriek of rupturing air, it launched upward, 80 meters in seconds, aiming straight for the tower. Reaper fired again. This shot hit the thigh joint. Another burst of sparks. It faltered. He rolled left just as it hit the tower's base. The structure groaned. Steel buckled. Reaper flung himself off the catwalk as the entire platform collapsed, sending the sniper nest crashing to the ground. He landed hard. Pain flared through his side, but he moved anyway, ducking behind a rusted tractor, heart pounding. The creature emerged from the wreckage, wounded, but very much alive. It turned its head toward him. Their eyes locked. Then it vanished, cloak shimmering back into play, blurring into nothing. Gone. Natalie's voice burst back through the static, panicked. We lost visual. What happened? Reaper didn't respond. He checked his rifle. Jammed. He reached for his sidearm instead, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. He'd drawn blood. That mattered. But the hunt was far from over. And now, the assassin knew he was more than bait. The Exeron didn't mourn, but they did adapt. Inside a collapsed mine shaft beneath the Montana hills, the remaining four gathered in absolute silence. The wounded one, designation Keth, shivered in cycles of bioluminescent pulses, its arms severed just above the elbow. Self-repair enzymes gurgled beneath its dermal plating, but the injury wasn't just physical, it was conceptual. In 3,000 operations across 100 worlds, none had been touched by prey. Until now. The commander, Vale, kneeled beside Keth. Its eyes, 4 of them, layered like obsidian marbles, remained locked on a shifting projection in the dirt. Satellite feeds hacked from Earth's own grid played back grainy, slowed footage. A shimmer of foliage. A flash of light. One of their own collapsing. A single shot. Impossible velocity. Organic stealth. Human sniper. Unknown class. Probability of re-engagement. 97%. Vale did not display emotion, but its limbs tensed. The mission was compromised. Yet abandoning it was not an option. Orders from the throne world had been explicit. Terminate Earth's coordinated defense specialists before planetary resistance reached critical maturity. Humanity's refusal to surrender had made them a threat, not through force of arms, but through unpredictability. For the first time, the Exeron would not strike from shadows. They would bait. Far below, in a decommissioned subway tunnel repurposed as an op station, Reaper 1, real name undisclosed, background files classified, even a high command, stood before a terminal. A woman sat at its side, fingers flying across the keyboard. Satellite shows they've gone subterranean, she muttered, dragging a thermal overlay across a terrain map. Temperatures spiked in this zone. Could be power cells or body heat. Hard to tell with their modulation. They're regrouping, Reaper said quietly. His voice was low, weathered, not unfriendly, but each word felt like it had been tested before use. The analyst glanced at him. You expected that. I hoped for it. She paused, curiosity flashing across her face. Why? Means they're scared. He reached for his rifle case, flipping it open with the reverence of a priest handling scripture. The rifle inside had no manufacturer's mark, no serial number. It was matte black, lined with carbon filaments, longer than regulation allowed. Everything about it said, illegal, impossible, lethal. Command wants you to wait for support, she said. I won't. Then they said observe. Don't engage. I will. He paused, adjusting the scope, calibrating the windage, the elevation, instinctively, without needing numbers. They won't wait long. Neither will I. She watched him disappear into the stairwell, his figure swallowed by the flickering overhead lights. No orders. No farewell. Just movement. Miles away, the Exaron deployed their trap. They chose a canyon, narrow, choked with fog, hemmed in by cliff walls too sheer for satellites to penetrate. Thermal drones were jammed. Sound was distorted by active dampening fields. To human technology, it would appear empty. To a hunter's instinct, it would seem too perfect. That was the point. Keth crouched at the canyon's entrance, feigning weakness. Its injured side hung limply, ichor dripping into the moss. The others positioned themselves in a staggered half-circle among the stones, cloaked in metamaterial so fine it bent light and scent. They waited, not in boredom, not in stillness, but in programmed anticipation. The sniper would come. He had to. He arrived just before dusk. Reaper 1 moved like part of the terrain, emerging from the underbrush and descending the slope with slow, measured purpose. He never rushed. Rushing got you killed. His rifle swung low, his steps soft. The canyon felt wrong. Every bird had gone silent. Even the insects had fled. He noticed the wounded Exaron immediately. Too visible, too centered, too inviting. His instincts screamed trap. But traps didn't matter. Not if you already knew where the teeth were. He took cover behind a ridge, dropped to his stomach, and opened his scope. Keth's vitals flickered across the HUD. Irregular, feigned pain. Performance art for the predator it didn't understand. Reaper adjusted the dial, breath steady. The first shot cracked the silence. It didn't hit Keth. It tore through a rock shelf 50 meters west, where one cloaked assassin waited. The impact disrupted the field, revealing Exaron mid-shift, mid-rise. Second shot. Headshot. Gone. Vale hissed. It was not pain. It was calculation. Reaper rolled, changed position. A sniper didn't stay still. A sniper flowed like smoke. Another assassin rose from cover to flank, and tripped a wire Reaper had laid minutes before. The resulting explosion wasn't large, but it flared with magnesium bright enough to blind their photoreceptors. Third shot. Chest. Fourth shot. Spine. Target down. Vale moved fast. Too fast for any human, but not for a human who'd killed in 5 wars, across 3 continents, in every season known to Earth. The 5th shot grazed Vale's leg, deliberate. Reaper had learned something. They could bleed. They could fear. He wanted them to know he wasn't like their other prey. Up above, satellites blinked to life again. Jamming signals faltered, then vanished. The analyst in the bunker sat bolt upright, jaw slack. "He's killing them," she whispered. Morrison leaned in. "How many?" 3 confirmed. 4th injured. "He's dismantling them like he knows how they think." Morrison's voice lowered. "He doesn't think like us. That's why they'll never beat him." In the canyon, the fog had begun to clear. Only Keth and Vale remained. Vale didn't flee. It shifted, grew, limbs elongating in a grotesque expression of full combat form. It leapt across the canyon floor in a blur of razors and shrieks. Reaper didn't blink. He waited. As the assassin descended, claws outstretched, jaws split wide, Reaper reached into his vest. Not for a weapon, but for the dog tag. He kissed it once, then threw it at the beast's face. Vale hesitated, just enough. Final shot. Right eye. The Exaron collapsed midair, crashing into the stone like a shattered puppet. Reaper stood slowly. No hurry now. He walked to Keth. The creature cowered. "I'm not the strongest," Reaper said quietly. "Not the fastest. But I learn. That's why you'll lose." He raised a rifle. Keth's scream echoed once, then never again. Reaper turned and vanished into the mist. But the galaxy had heard Earth's answer. Aboard the Exaron orbital command vessel Vorix Ultima, orbiting just beyond Earth's moon, the high strategist Val stood motionless in the core observation chamber. Before it, A holographic rendering of North America pulsed with red and green markers, all gathered near a single locus, Montana. It had expected resistance. But this anomaly? One soldier, without a unit, without reinforcements, had decimated its elite hunting cadre, not through superior weapons, though his were formidable, but through behavior. Human behavior. No recognizable pattern. No emotional telemetry. He had struck like a phantom and vanished before any predictive models could adjust. An error had been made. Bring the operative, Viel said in a clicking dialect only artificial minds could interpret. Moments later, the bulkhead irised open, and an armored form entered. Taller than an Exeron warrior. Sleeker. Its flesh was visible only in seams between adaptive alloy plating, synthetic muscle and nerve entwined with organomechanical engineering. A creation not born, but forged. Operative designation. Saul Wrexham. Once a Exeron. Now something more. You summoned me, Wrexham said, its voice low, resonating with two harmonics. Recalibrate your mission. We're no longer facing primitives. This human is an apex-class threat. The Council demands proof of finality. No more shadows. Bring me his skull. Reaper 1 was already on the move. He didn't wait for orders. Not because he rejected authority, but because he knew the lag between intel and response could get people killed. In the field, decisions were made in seconds, not through committees. The analyst, her name was Natalie, had stayed behind, watching the satellites in real time. She relayed encrypted messages to Reaper's private comms. He never responded verbally. Just clicks. 2 for understood. 1 for negative. 3 if he needed fire support. He'd only clicked 3 once. The request had never gone through. He'd handled it himself. This time, the data was different. Heat signatures descended from orbit, far cleaner than the previous assassins. No noise. No bleed. Whatever was coming wasn't just cloaked. It was engineered for finality. Natalie sent a single message. It's not another squad. It's something else. Bigger. Meaner. Be careful. He didn't reply. He already knew. The ghost town of Crystal Peak lay abandoned since the mid-1980s. Just a collection of cracked wooden storefronts, empty mines, and forgotten history nestled in the shadows of the Bitterroot Mountains. Reaper had chosen it deliberately. The terrain funneled movement. Every rooftop, every shaft, every collapsed cabin could serve as a trap. And traps were all he had now. He arrived hours before sunset, setting charges under planks, rigging tripwires through broken windows, planting decoys and reflective lures. Then he waited, still, breathing steady, rifle tucked under his shoulder, a shadow within shadows. The sun fell behind the horizon, casting long bruises of darkness across the mountains. The operative arrived without sound, not through the roads, not from above, but emerging from the forest like some ancient predator. Its footsteps made no noise. Its eyes glowed faint blue beneath the helmet visor, scanning in full spectrum. Reaper had already identified it. Bipedal, tall, armored. Too deliberate to be one of the wild ones. This was a hunter designed to outhunt. He didn't shoot first. He never shot first unless he was sure. He waited, holding breath, tracking movement. The operative paused in the middle of the dirt street, scanning. It raised one hand. From its palm, a drone detached, small, almost insect-like. It zipped upward, emitting pulses invisible to the human eye. EMP, Reaper thought. He was right. Every trap of the circuit went dead. So he pivoted. Analog fallback, tripwires, motion bells, counterweights, gunpowder. The drone flew over a saloon doorway. Reaper shot it out of the air. Not to stop it, but to be seen, to provoke a response. The operative turned. It moved fast, but so did Reaper. He changed position instantly, diving from the roof to the second floor of a collapsed schoolhouse. Dust choked the air. The operative advanced, each step measured. Reaper tossed a brick through a window. The operative tracked it, then realized too late it wasn't bait. The real decoy had been behind it. A pressure switch linked to a fragmentation canister embedded in the stove. Explosion. Wood splintered. The operative stumbled, armor scorched but intact. The plating had absorbed most of the blast. Reaper adjusted, firing 2 quick rounds at the exposed joints along the ribs. One bullet lodged. The other sparked against steel. The operative turned faster than any human could, leaping across the space and crashing through the second floor. Reaper rolled, drew a sidearm, fired point blank. The round hit the operative's helmet, snapping its head sideways. Not enough. They collided, grappled. Reaper felt pain, a flare in his ribs. The thing had strength beyond muscle. It was mass multiplied by purpose. But Reaper moved. Every punch he absorbed, he redirected. Every block, he countered. He wasn't just fighting. He was reading. Every gesture, every choice, every breath. The operative swung downward, aiming to break his spine. Reaper dropped flat and triggered a backup trap. The floorboards collapsed beneath them. Both fell into the cellar. Dirt. Bones. Ancient tools. Reaper landed hard, but not wrong. The operative crashed through a shelf and cracked a support beam. Dust blinded them both. Reaper scrambled up, used the dust. One shot. Flash round. Blinding white. The operative staggered. Reaper aimed at the exposed battery node now, sparking on its side. Second shot. Direct hit. Screeching metal. Something inside the operative convulsed. But it didn't fall. It turned, rage now evident in its movements. A low harmonic growl rolled from its throat. For the first time, Reaper felt it. This thing hated him. Natalie stared at the monitor. The thermal signatures were overlapping now. Red heat and surging power spikes. The bunker lights flickered. A signal attempted to breach the mainframe, encrypted and unknown. A message forced itself onto the screen. Target is competent. Commencing full conversion. Human annihilation priority. She gasped. It's broadcasting directly into our systems. Like it wants us to watch. Behind her, General Morrison stared at the screen, pale. If Reaper doesn't kill that thing, he muttered, we won't get another chance. In the cellar, the operative lunged again, more aggressive now. Reaper barely dodged, the air splitting where its claws tore past. He couldn't win this in a fair fight. Good thing he didn't believe in fair. He pulled his last resort from a leg holster, a shaped thermite charge, pinned it to the operative's chest. The thing grabbed him. Reaper smiled. You burned too. He dove backward, flipped a switch on his belt. The cellar ignited in molten fire. The ground above cracked. The saloon caved in, and everything went silent. Flames licked the fractured remains of the saloon's foundation, smothering the air in waves of ash and smoke. The thermite charge had done its job, pulverizing the interior with such intensity that even steel buckled under its fury. The cellar was gone. Just rubble and scorched stone remained, glowing faintly beneath the Montana moon. Nothing moved for a long time. Then, from the blackened edge of the crater, a hand emerged, flesh, not alloy. Fingers dug into the dirt, dragging a battered, bleeding form into the open. Reaper won, face streaked with blood and soot, ribs screaming with every breath, one eye nearly swollen shut. But alive. He coughed, then rolled onto his side, cradling the custom rifle that had somehow survived the detonation. His body ached in places he didn't know existed. Burns patterned his arms. The ballistic armor he wore was shredded. But he wasn't dead, and neither was the enemy. A screech tore through the night. Metal on bone, unfiltered by caution or stealth. From the rubble, something rose. The operative. But it had changed. The armor was fused with molten slag, now warped and fused with its body like scar tissue. One arm was gone, replaced by exposed fiber and synth muscle twitching like a nest of serpents. Its eyes no longer glowed blue. They blazed crimson. It wasn't operating on mission anymore. It was hunting from instinct. Reaper staggered to his feet, dragging himself behind a collapsed mining cart. His rifle clicked empty. He reached for his belt. No magazines. Nothing left but a last resort knife and his instinct. A soft buzz tickled his ear. Natalie. Satellite confirms life signs. You're still breathing, Reaper. That thing's moving again. Fast. You got maybe 2 minutes before it locks onto your position. He didn't answer. Didn't need to. She knew he'd already begun his final maneuver. 2 minutes was more than he needed. The terrain around Crystal Peak sloped sharply into a ravine, a place he'd scouted earlier, noting the unstable shale ridges and the 50-foot drop into a narrow gorge. He hadn't planned to use it. Until now. Reaper limped toward the ridge, each step echoing in his bones. Behind him, the operative's broken form moved through the flames, staggering but unstoppable. It made no sound now. No growl. Just the wet slap of alloyed feet crushing embers. Reaper reached the edge. No cover. No advantage. Except for gravity. He turned, watching the figure emerge fully into view. The operative had no weapons left, only claws and hate. Its gait was twisted now, more beast than soldier. Reaper saw madness in its posture. It had lost its mind, and maybe that made it more dangerous than ever. He stepped back, just an inch. The cliff's edge crumbled under his heel. He holstered his knife, tightened the straps on his vest. Then he did something unexpected. He stood tall, exposed, visible. A challenge. The operative didn't hesitate. It charged. Reaper didn't run. At the last second, he pivoted, letting momentum and terrain work together. As the operative lunged, Reaper twisted and fell backward, grabbing the thing's damaged torso and yanking it with him. Both went over the edge. They fell together, wind howling, rocks exploding past them in a blur of darkness and firelight. The gorge screamed past, narrowing. Reaper counted seconds. 1, 2, 3. On 4, he activated the emergency tether in his vest. A bolt shot upward, embedding into a rock shelf with a sonic crack. The cord snapped taut, nearly ripping his shoulder out of its socket, but it stopped him cold. The operative wasn't so lucky. It continued down, weight accelerating, until it crashed at the bottom of the ravine. Metal crunched. A final shudder echoed up the canyon walls. Then silence. Reaper hung for a moment, swaying in the updraft, his breathing ragged. Then, slowly, he lowered himself the final few feet to the rocky ground below. He limped toward the wreckage. The operative twitched once, its core exposed, red fluid leaking. Reaper stood over it. No rifle, no grand weapon, just his knife. It looked up at him, and for a flicker, just a moment, there was something like understanding in its shattered face. Not recognition, not respect, but fear. Then Reaper drove the blade through its eye. When he finally climbed out of the ravine, hours later, the first light of dawn was touching the mountain peaks. A drone hovered in the distance. His evac. Natalie's voice returned, breathless. You're alive. Affirmative, he rasped. And the target. Terminated. She didn't reply immediately. Then came the low voice of General Morrison. We read your logs. Saw the footage. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't just another assassin. No, Reaper said. It was a message. There was a pause. Then the general asked, and what message do we send back? Reaper looked over the ruined ghost town, the cratered earth, and the trail of destruction stretching for miles. That earth doesn't play by their rules, he said. And with that, he boarded the drone. As the aircraft lifted him skyward, away from the battlefield, he didn't look back. Not because he didn't care, but because he knew this wouldn't be the last message the Galactic Empire would send, and he would be ready to answer every single one.